how long I start from the top, like how long has the AZ Pod Studio been open? Like when did the origins date or origin year? Was it 2020, 2021? How long have you been open?
So AZ Pod has been open since 2020.
Okay.
So we literally opened August of 2020, towards, in the middle of the pandemic, really. Because I feel like things didn't pop off until May or April of 2020. So we're already a couple months into the pandemic. But me and a former partner, friend of mine, we decided, hey, let's just start a studio.
This is right after COVID, or
this is during COVID.
Oh, during
COVID. So during COVID, we're just straight up building a studio. You know what I mean?
Where'd the idea come? I had to be a thing that happened, or I don't know. You know how people get ideas and they see things and it kind of gives them the light bulb. Is there anything like that, or is it just more so let's try it out?
So it was more I was already renting space in this building, and because I have another business focusing more on production, production, branding, all that good stuff. And one of the biggest questions, or one of the biggest things that I always came across was a location. You know what I mean? Initially, the thought was building out a studio so that way we have a location to shoot interviews. And in the middle of that, I realized podcasts are continuing to grow. They're just blowing up year after year. And I think even with Joe Rogan getting a deal with Spotify and stuff like that, that just blew up so much excitement for content creators and podcasters that it's just kind of there's an open door there. You know what I mean?
It's opportunity.
For sure.
I got a lot of people excited. Shout out to, I watch Gary Vee a lot. You know Gary Vee?
Yeah, I know Gary Vee, yep.
He's been on par. First time I saw him, it was in 2013, and he was like, how many people know who I am? And I was like, I don't know, I was 18. I just graduated high school, but he's been write about a lot of stuff before it actually happened.
Right.
And podcasting was something that he was talking about, or long form, or just overall dialogue is big. And this is super important. It's great to see because nowadays, people want to go to a hub or an area where they can get information. So. And then Joe Rogan just affirmed it. Between people like Joe Rogan and Mr. Beast,
yep,
we have control. It's not necessarily just the radio, or a newspaper or the TV. Now we can be the TV,
right?
For people that resonate with what we got to say,
right?
So, so since you started that, going into 2023, before you even get into that, so you said you had a experience in film and production. Where did that start for you?
Well, I actually went to school at the Art Institute of Phoenix, right? And fresh out of college, I happened to do an internship with a production company that was working on the Phoenix Suns intro video at the time. So my instructor at the time recommended me because he was personal friends with the director, the owner. Shout out Caritas Productions. And shout out to David Blum. Because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gone into eventually getting a job with the Phoenix Suns and all that. So that's how I met my boss at the time.
And you were pumped for it at the time,
Oh yeah,
it was the biggest. You get to work with the Phoenix Suns.
It was actually kind of like a dream because I was such a big fan of the team. You know, you got Amare and Nash and Jay Rich and Channing Frye and all those guys just killing it around that season. It was the 2009-2010 season when I got hired on. So my first year was super exciting because that was when we went all the way up to the Western Conference Finals. Rest in peace, Kobe. He was the guy that killed us during that finals, but it was so fun to watch, and especially with having that rivalry with San Antonio, and we ended up sweeping them. It was such a big accomplishment for the team itself, and just to be in that environment, the entire staff being so excited that we finally get to so close to the finals. It was just such a wild experience, you know what I mean? So going into fresh from college, working for an organization like that right off the gate, and I was there for 6 years, starting off as their video editor, worked in the in-game entertainment department. So if you guys ever been to an arena game, like just seeing all the LEDs and the big jumbotron in the center, like me and a group of others were in charge of putting all the content up there for the jumbotron and all the LED animations and stuff like that. So when I was there, I started off as a video editor, just more of like the content that got shown in the main jumbotron, and then eventually, because I went to school for more of the post-production, like visual effects and motion graphics, I didn't want that to die out. So I was self-taught on the video editing side and the production side with cameras and all that. So when I started doing the motion graphics, I switched over to becoming an animator for all the LEDs. And it was cool. It was great. I had a good time. Like, the people that I worked with was amazing. But eventually it just got to that point where it's like working for somebody starts to take a toll on you, doing the same things over and over again.
You felt dull and you're ready to take that next step in terms of your growth.
For sure. Like, they saw it, like, and a lot of people don't even know this, but like, I actually got laid off. Like, I just didn't leave. I got laid off, and that's because they saw that my passion there was not, there anymore. There was a lot of management changes around that time too, so they were kind of just searching for people that were still all in with the organization. And at that time, it's just like the creativeness in me was just not flowing anymore. And so I just I got laid off, and they saw it. But I'd say by the grace of God, they gave me an extra month to kind of like prepare myself, because that whole month while I was working my last month there, I was preparing, like, what am I going to do next? And I just didn't feel comfortable working for somebody else until a good friend of mine, shout out Larry Riddick, he told me, hey man, when are you going to start your own thing? And
light bulb.
That was like a light bulb moment.
You were like, I have not asked myself that question. That's a great question.
Yeah, exactly. And you hear the stories, like, working for yourself is so hard. It's hell. You have to really be dedicated. It's not for the faint of heart. So I'm like already disqualifying myself, honestly. Like, can I really do that?
Right.
So, but it kept lingering. That question kept lingering, and I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna do it.
Took a chance.
In the midst of me being engaged to my girlfriend, now wife at the time, planning for our wedding, I get laid off. Literally have nothing planned, right? But that question is still lingering, like, when are you going to start your own thing? So I just took a leap of faith and did it. And it was wild, man, because when people found out that I was working for myself,
they were like, yes.
People were like, hey, I need you to do my video content. Hey, I need you to help me with creating a video for my business. And so that's how it started. And then that's how I met the owner of this building, where we are right now, is he took a chance, and I have a friend that works for the company for Celebrity Dance, and he took a chance and was like, hey, do you want to come out with us for our conventions and shoot our video content and put together highlight reels?
Let's go.
So that's how I learned how to like shoot on the go, and I'm self-taught, so like I'm like, fake it till you make it type of thing. Even though I don't believe in that statement, sometimes you do have to kind of like fake it until you kind of like make it. So I just literally learn on the spot. My family, God bless my family for helping me out and getting me a camera. Really believed in what I was trying to accomplish, and that was how it started. And that's how I built my relationship with the owner of this building. And he just kind of like, when I pitched him the idea, 6 years later, like, hey, I really want to open up some podcast studios in this building. Can I do it? And he's like, yeah, go ahead. So thank you, Drew Phillip. I appreciate you. So yeah.
Dude, that's a beautiful thing. Out of that timeline, the two things that stuck out to me, well, three things is, when it came down to it, the people that have a voice of production, because that's why this is so important, because there's nothing wrong with having your back against the wall, because that was the catalyst to have you get to this day, number one. And then number two, you had a skill and you had a passion towards learning the skill. You might have not loved it every day, but you still had curiosity and interest to do it. And then number three, you honored and valued relationships. among
Hands
people
down.
around you, because it wasn't no one here, you and I didn't get here by ourselves in terms of the skills that we have and the opportunities, and so it's a combination, it's a compliment, it's a certain type of person, and that's why this is so important, because we want to encourage more people to let them know it's nothing wrong with having your back against the wall. Like, you had to make a decision. You literally didn't know what was going to happen. I've been in that scenario where it's like you have to make something happen. It's either fight or flight, and this is what. See, I didn't even know this, but I knew. This is exactly why I was like, gotta sit down with Martin. We gotta share this, because these are the things that are gonna inspire people to make a decision, and most importantly, to not make the decision of not making any decision, to have them take the chance of doing something. Because if they hearing this, people watching this right now and that see this clip of you saying that, they're gonna be like, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
And this is just one layer of it. When I'm sure we can go into like layer and layer as far as like each relationship and
But you need that. Like, you need that sometimes, like, to be put in such a corner and pressure, because one, I feel like when those moments happen, that starts to define what type of person you are, and you start to see like what you're capable of.
100%.
And when you see that and you get out of it and you're like, shoot, I didn't realize I could get past that scenario. And when you do, it just gives you such a different level of confidence, especially as a business owner. I feel like you can almost take on almost anything that comes your way. You know what I mean? So I say embrace those moments when you're basically held in a corner with so much pressures, for sure.
100%. And this is a perfect segue into it all. Like, as far as what you have with the vision here, as far as having people using the studio, and then this goes into like, who would be somebody to use, a studio? Why would a business, or why would a personal brand, why would somebody come use a podcast studio? Do you have to have a story, a celebrity-like story? No, you don't need that. It's nowadays people just want to relate to people, especially things being like AI and automated. And so going back to the whole business side of things, most people have some type of job, and then a lot of times it's a side hustle supporting that job, or a job supporting the side hustle to eventually become the job, or a businesses that do things traditionally that can do things modernly. And those are the people that can really resonate, or a demographic of people that can really resonate with stories like this, because you might not see the value of jumping into a studio, but you taking a chance and at least understanding it and tasting it will give you the revelation of understanding, how it can add so much value to you, especially when it comes to your business. Because people just want to resonate, and there's people that resonate with my story, your story, the business stories of people that might be watching this, to come into your store or come into the studio to really to overall get the trust. Right. And to overall make a decision to buy from a business, and most importantly, somebody that does good business, because it is definitely weird, and it's not the easiest thing. It's definitely terrifying. Every time you're like, man, hopefully I don't say anything, but it holds people accountable. Because this is why it's so important to do video. This is why I'm always a big advocate, and that's why I'm glad you take the chance to go ahead and sit down, as much as it's uncomfortable. Right. Because
I'm terrified, by the way.
It's so terrified. That's all I've been hearing. He's just been telling me like, this is terrifying. But he's wanting to do it, he's willing to do it, and I'm here to go ahead and help push, because it's gonna push him to different levels. But same thing for somebody that has a business. It's gonna push you to levels you've never seen before, especially when it comes to your business, because people want trust. So you can no longer be a corporate company anymore and do things under the rug anymore. And so what's the best way to control your narrative in your story, where people choose you as opposed to your competitor? Jump in front of the camera. And this is where AZ Pod comes in. This is where, you jumping in front of the camera to be like, I really resonate with what they have to say and how they do things. I associate of how they operate, because that's how I operate my business. And now we're creating more good business and a greater standard of business. Because there's a lot of crappy businesses that, for many different reasons, who knows, that, that are getting found out, or they need to be found out, because it's
always passive. The silent ones that are like the good ones.
Exactly. They don't want to be seen.
They don't want to be seen because they're afraid of criticism. Like me. Like, I think maybe subconsciously I've been like that because of the fear of the criticism that might come. You know what I mean? Especially with other professionals that are in your industry that might be super critical with like, well, that key light don't look good. That
transition was
that
off.
f-stop should have been a little bit slightly lower so you can have more depth of field on that background, or you know what I mean? Like they get super technical with it, and I appreciate it because I mean I'm a guy that loves quality. Like I'm always nitpicking the finer details, and even I apply that with the clients that come in. Like I want to make sure like their stuff looks good, and it's just at the end of the day it's just fear. You know what I mean? And you can't let fear paralyze you for sure. And I've listened to a lot of podcasts, recording people in here that they almost have the same narrative. You know what I mean? They go through some hardship, they allow fear to paralyze them, but once they like get past that, it's like so many amazing things happen. You know what I mean? So I almost tell people like don't let the fear paralyze you at all, because once you get past that initial like doubt or fear of what's the word I'm looking for, the imposter syndrome.
Right.
I think that's another huge one. Like you'd be surprised at what things could happen. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. And to kind of really go off of what you said, like we don't have to come here with the answers. We're just sharing a perspective.
For sure.
We're sharing a perspective. We're sharing our skill set, our experiences, and what we know. And that's why this is so empowering, and why I've been dying to get in front of the camera, and where I've been building everybody else up. So now it's time for you and I to do it, because
you're right. Yeah.
Everybody else has been, doing things. But the only difference is, we don't have to. We're not perfect. We're not perfect. I don't want you to think I'm perfect, but you know that I'm willing to share my story. And it's more so sharing our story, it should encourage you to share your story to a degree, whether you want to help somebody with their path. Like a lot of the content that I make, like I post a lot of content on Facebook, on my personal, and it's just me kind of documenting what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm having a good day, having a bad day, but this is how I'm working through it. And then it helps me connect with everybody I'm not able to talk to, because the crazy thing about social, this is, I guess, the con is like you're always connected with everybody. And so it's like, there's like even I always think about this, there's always a birthday going on. Like think about 20 years ago, you had like 20 people, maybe 5 people you knew birthdays of. Yeah. But the friends that you've developed and family over the years, now you're like, oh, I forgot to tell that person their birthday. I don't know, that might just be me, where I'm like, oh, I see a birthday and I'm like,
I feel horrible when I see it on the calendar and I forgot to text them or something. I'm like, because again, it goes back to what you said earlier about valuing relationships, right? Like I value relationships. The people that are still in my life, like I value them tremendously. Sometimes I do a poor job showing it, but in my mind, like I'm thinking one of these days, like I'm gonna bless them, and they're not even gonna know it, just for rocking with me for so long. But there's like, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I'm just like, I want to get to that level or that point of whether that's financial or success, to be able to like, I just want to
grant resources and opportunity to people that, in general, like just, and most importantly to people that you want to give back to,
right? That are so deserving. So
100%. Like, and that is going back to the full circle. Like this is the start. This is the start of being able to do that indirectly or directly when it comes to letting people know you're thinking about them.
Right.
Like, damn, I didn't really know Martin really felt that way. I didn't really know I had that. I was just hooking them up and introducing them to this person, and it just happened to change their life, because everybody has a narrative in their head. And to assume, that's where a lot of loss comes in.
Right.
And so this is where we have the ability to reach a message and overall just share a perspective. Because again, people are doing one of two things. Whether you're watching it or it's us, you're either consuming a message or you're producing a message. Yeah. And it's like, what's the ratio for you? And so everybody has the ability to do it to some degree. You can do written, you can do photo, and then the most emotional. And again, I like to look at this because you have like a movie set up. Like I look at this and it's like this, like the world, the ballot is gonna know to come here for everything and to kind of go.
And if you were wondering what am I doing here, I'm literally cutting to every angle as we're having this conversation. Yeah. So you can see what we do here, get a glimpse of what we do here. That's one of the things that we do here, is where I feel like not a lot of our competitors are doing, is that we live edit as we shoot our people's content. So that way they save time and money where they don't have to worry about outsourcing an editor, and they get their content faster as well.
Yeah, because content is king, and
Content is king.
that's all we talk about, and to go into why this is so important, because like we're talking about our story. Every business has a story of how it was created. Every personal brand, like, because now it's crazy. Like, influencer is some type of occupation nowadays, you know. And, you know, brick and mortars, who I work with a lot of, like, I got my event May 19th.
Yep.
And this is going to be a big component of what I'm pushing people to do, sitting down with them just like you,
Yeah.
and prompting them on questions that they don't necessarily think are valuable,
Right.
and recording them and having that used to advertise for their business to help them bring in that additional revenue that, you know, that never worked, or because people are consuming a narrative or they're producing a narrative. And why would you not be producing a narrative? Because
Right.
like 9 times out of 10, that coffee shop, you know, that restaurant, you know, that automotive shop, whether any brick and mortar, any local or service-based business, nobody's telling their story. And so a lot of people now go off of presentation and, like you said,
Yeah.
quality, which I like to use the example. Like I went to a studio, and this is like day and night, and the guy I went with, he didn't want to do it. I didn't care. But now I understand where I was like, okay, that he wanted to make sure his presentation matched. And that's important, because especially if somebody wants to give you some type of interaction, they want to see interaction maybe in your comment section,
Yeah.
or on your Facebook, or on your Instagram. Are you replying to comments? Are you addressing 2-star reviews? You know, do you have questions? Do you have answers to their questions with video content like this? These things can help push people to just walk through your door, as opposed to just going to a Facebook group and saying, hey, who can I trust?
Right.
This is what it's like to be able to sit in a chair like this for an hour for AZ Pods, and you can go ahead and address the questions of people that overall just want to know if they can trust you, because you're not the only person doing what you're doing.
Right.
Doesn't matter what the industry is. People objectively want to trust you, and they want to know if you can provide an answer to the solution that they're looking for. But they might not always want to like do some in-depth research. It could just be answered in 30 seconds, 60 seconds, an hour, whatever. However people consume information nowadays, that is why this is important. This is why it's no longer an accessory, it's a necessity for people to go ahead and document their process to build a better relationship with their current customers or people that follow them, or your family that might be rocking with you, or, you know, your documentation. Because I look at it as like, it's crazy to think about. We're 20 years into the internet, but like Mr. Beast, I'll give you that example. Like Mr. Beast has this idea of when he dies, he wants to have like an episode a week of content of him coming out for like say 20 years after he passes away, every week for 10 years. He mentions it. I'll have to find, this is perfect edit where it's like, boop, him saying it. And then he wants to be able to like basically live on. Like, you ever seen Ready Player One?
I love that movie.
One of my favorite movies. It's basically that, but like imagine you struck. It's like in your wheel where you have a video team and you're like AZ Pods. You're like, okay, I want to give you guys, this is in my wheel. I want AZ Pods and the team to edit, 17 years of content. I'm gonna use my will money to be able to tell my story, my legacy for 20 years on, because I have 4,000 videos or whatever the case may be. And we publish it and premiere it on YouTube or Rumble for that 17 years. Like, that right there is not far off. Like, it, but to hear that, it was kind of crazy, but like that's a reality now.
To be able to be thinking that way, you know what I mean? Like, he's
it's like insane.
kind of reminds me with Kanye, where he had his friend record his process. No, I haven't seen the documentary, but it's on Netflix. Mm-hmm. But the dude was so confident he was going to make it. He had somebody record his process, knowing that eventually that's going to be a documentary one day.
That's why I got so many damn videos on my phone, because
you never know.
Because you never know
when you're going to blow up, and then you can go back and show.
Yeah, and then most importantly for me, it's important, like knowing the process of seeing where I'm at. Like, I do it when I deadlift. When I like to do journals. I have journals, videos. Maybe one day I'll just make public, but sometimes I'll make them and they're unlisted, and then I'll just talk to myself. I'll be like, it's like today is like, I'll be like, it's March 22nd, 2023, and this is how I'm feeling today. This is what I did in the last 6 months. This is what I'm looking forward to. You know, this is what I like to change. Like I do some weird stuff like that where that's just considered weird, where it's a diary, but it's for me, it's like to hold myself accountable. But be able to pull that out and say I wanted to timestamp. I said that 5 years ago and I stuck with the process and it wasn't like a hypothetical. Like talk about inspiration. Talk about something that's like that's something that sticks in times. Like imagine if we had film of like our parents, which is why this is so new. Imagine our parents, our grandparents. We had film of that. Like what would we pay to see what young, what
they went through and what are the patterns that I'm going through the same way that they went through. Like just
it's priceless.
Right.
Like that right there is what we're being able to create now when it comes to, and that's another thing. I can't wait for my grandmother to come down here because she is 73. 70, she just turned 73, 74, but she is sharp as nails. She's more cognitive to Biden. Like she knows things down to the T. Like she's like, back when I was 17, I did this. And like she was born in 1949.
Wow.
But she's still active, but she has so many stories where I'm like, Grandma, like I'm gonna move her out of her house, help her move her out of her house. And then the next place that she lives, she has so much memorabilia, but part of the memorabilia now is not just the photos, and she got receipts
for days
to like for this. She has receipts to that table from 40 years ago. She has tax books from like, Grandma, why do you have this alphabetically organized? But like that's memorabilia.
Yeah.
But combined with that to having her sit down like this is priceless because now years to come, my brother, shout out to my brother Quentin, he just had his daughter, my niece, Zari, and we'll be able to show that documentation of
as she's growing up and
like this is where we come from.
Essentially, video is just absolutely powerful.
Exactly. And
that's no disrespect to photographers because what they do is amazing, but I always tell people like, especially for weddings, right? Like. The videographer is always overlooked, but like they say, a photo.
Oh yeah, photo says 1,000
says 1,000 words or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah,
and
but like a video, you can actually relive those moments.
Yeah.
So I feel COVID really made people realize, the importance of video. Even Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, he even said it himself, like. If you told me that videographers could make 6 figures or more, I would say you're stupid or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but he said like COVID made him see the value of content for all his businesses. Like it took a pandemic for him to realize that.
And this is why this is so important, and this is why it's no longer accessory. It's necessity because like what are people doing in COVID? Everybody was pondering.
What they're going to do.
What they're going to do.
And then they start doing their content and they're like, oh, this is exciting. I want to do more of this. Like for my business, we made more money during COVID than anything because people, again, they saw the reality of what content could bring for their personal brand or their business that it just blew up any videographer I felt, during that time that took advantage of it.
And here's a common denominator, like, and going back to your point on, like, the photographer, videographer, like, no disrespect has to even come at, like, these things are complementary.
Absolutely. They all complement one another for sure.
Exactly. And then, of course, like, definitely agree, because pinnacle in terms of being able to evoke the most emotion, because I like to say this is a fire. Like, I love saying this. I'm glad to say this on camera. Like the same words, like it's crazy that there's people that made words and they had certain lighting and put certain music and certain background with certain scripts to get people to cry, laugh.
Right.
With movies.
Yep.
Last of Us. I always like to talk about that because I played that. That'll be one of the few games that I'll play for the rest of my life.
Which one?
Last of Us.
Oh yeah.
Like, and then they came out with the TV show. Never thought I had the brace to not shed a tear towards a TV show converted from a game, but they got me. But those things that's a video. That emotion was evoked from a combination that were ultimately portrayed through video.
Absolutely.
So if that's happening at that level, we now have the opportunity to do it at this scale in places like the AZ Pod Studios. Even if it's not even at this point, like even with your phone. But if you want to go ahead and have it where it's more so hands off, and you just need to you need to sit down and you need to be prompted on, the who, the what, the why, the where. You'd be surprised the impact you can give to the business, or impact that you're looking to give in terms of your friends, your family, or customers that already love you, to people that don't even know who you are.
Right.
Like this is what you can do with video, because you're bringing emotion out of yourself anyway from the stuff that you're consuming. So what sense does it make not to have some type of production around the story that you're telling to the world? Because
that just goes with more psychologically, like having a brand,
Yeah, what is a brand?
Well, a brand. Trying to see if I don't torture it.
Your perspective. That's bring the disclaimer. We're giving our perspective of what these things are out of our own words. Is this the answer? No, but this is how Martin and Shawn is saying it.
Yeah, well, I'll even say what Marty Newmar. I don't know if I'm saying his last name right or wrong. Marty Newmar. Sorry.
We'll get it right.
We'll get it right.
We will.
We'll put the text up or whatever, or a picture of his book. He talks about essentially a brand is a gut feeling of the company. So when you see Nike, you see Adidas, you see Sprouts, Fries, you're consumed by all this different branding. Like I could take let's say if I remove this logo around my shirt, right? Like how much is the tee worth without it?
Nothing.
Like $10.
Yep.
$5, $7. But you throw a logo on, it's like $30, $45. So people build up their brand, their aesthetics, their look and feel, what they perceive what the brand is. And so then people start to see that, and they start to see the gut feeling behind that brand, and they see whether they see the value or not. Like Jordans, like me personally, I would never pay over $100 for sneakers. But I'm sure like somebody like you or somebody else would be like, hands down, because you're rocking some sneaks right now.
No, I'm not even.
Yeah.
Even for me, I'm not. I'm right there with you. Like I debate. Even for me, I'm debating on like on the shoe of things. Like if there's something good, I'll do it. But like that's not where like if it's convenient where I'm like I really like that shoe, I'll get it. But I'm not gonna hoard over. But overall, it's more so respecting that aspect, because like I should speak to people that might want to sell a product or that have a service.
And that's what I was trying to get to. Like bring it back to podcast, bring it back to video. Is if you have something valuable to say, and people are getting distracted by their bad quality of audio or your bad quality of video because you're shooting your stuff in your living room or in your kitchen, but you don't necessarily like, that's what I'm basically saying is that, in my opinion, quality matters, but content obviously at the end of the day, content overshadows quality. But if you have the two mesh together, quality and content, with your messaging and the value that you provide, you can be unstoppable, because people then start to see you as one of those brands, that gut feeling of saying like, Shawn has a great look and vibe and feel, and the content that he drops is amazing. Like they're not going to be distracted by the other stuff. You're raising the bar for yourself and others. Like I need my stuff to look like that. I need my stuff to almost resemble that, because then people will see when they want to invest or buy something off of me, whether it be a workshop, content, whatever, they see that. Let me restart that one. I feel like I'm rambling.
No, that's good. That's good. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, basically what I'm saying is just when you have the quality, you have the content. In short, what I'm trying to say is just people will see that there's a perception of value behind what you're offering because of the level of quality that you're showing. Yeah,
it increases your presentation. It increases the presentation of what you have to offer. And again, I want to make it so super clear on this. Like, it's not enough to just have presentation. Like, because like I have this I'll eventually have him on. Patrick, he already knows, because he's big on presentation. For me, I've always been like, I was gonna do a pod with the guy, and it wasn't like I'm not dismantling it or saying any names, but in general, it wasn't up to par. It was to the point where he didn't want to necessarily do it, but I didn't necessarily care. It's more so I wanted to go and get behind the camera, because I knew we were already having like fire conversations. We were having fire conversations leading up to that point. I knew we were going to be so valuable past it. But this isn't an excuse to just get on camera and not to provide a substance of value, especially specifically to talk to businesses. Like, I don't want this to be talking to people that might have a service or a product that's bad, and therefore, but they're promoting. They're not investing into the product or service, but they're investing into the aesthetic of the product or service. Because I come from the world of marketing, and I was talking about this with Carlos last time, and this is the beautiful thing about social or doing a podcast or putting yourself out there is it creates a degree of accountability. Like the editing we might put out, or the clients that might come in here, or in general, like you and I hold a standard that we want to deliver said good quality or product or service of, let's say, people that come into the pod.
Yeah,
so
it's people's preference, personal preference.
Exactly. And so with this is something that you need to use to give good presentation, but it's a great opportunity because I've listened to a couple of podcasts I've done here already, at least a few times, and I'm basically critiquing it. So this is how you should use this as a barometer, not to just put it out there, but also to be like, how can I better improve my message? Because I meet so many people. I got my buddy Levi, he'll be here. Shout out to him. I got to make my group text because I've got my first 5 panel.
Nice.
But it's all production guys.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun.
Okay.
Even if you want to be on it, like I said, that'll be some fun stuff. But long story short, he had a review. Somebody basically gave him a bad review, and I deal with this a lot in terms of clients. People want to get rid of bad reviews. Yeah. They're like, how can I get rid of this bad review? How can I take it out of here? Like, there's always going to be some type of troll. Like, there's things that need to be addressed, and there's people that just want to harass and give people a hard time. And so you got to know where that fine line is. But overall, most importantly, are you addressing it? And addressing it isn't necessarily erasing it. It's just more so giving it acknowledgement. I think
how you address it too.
Yeah, 100%. No, I'm right there with you. That's the most important. Like, how do you?
Because you can address it and go on this huge you're not really, great to work with either. You know what I mean? I've seen that, and I feel like that just adds a bad taste to that business when they respond in that way.
Because people see that.
They do, and unfortunately, we have to be the bigger individual.
That's my point.
We have to be the bigger individual and respond in a calm, submissive manner, I guess you could
just
say.
Control.
Just control, just control, period.
Just control. Because, like I said, it's just accountability. Like, when you own a business, when you have a brand, that's why this is why the voice production is so exciting to me, is the fact that, even Don's gonna come in, he is a representation. I almost forgot. I just remember that. He's a representation of somebody that, does good business. And it shows offline when I first met him.
Yep.
DC, shout out to DC, as well as online, where people respect him, they like him, and they trust him. He trains athletes, NFL, NBA, and that speaks testaments to who he is. Very, very nice individual, soft-spoken, massive dude, straight up goals. But he's a representation of his business, and it's like, why would people keep coming back? Because there's some type of degree of professionalism, quality, and high deliverable of service. And that's the standard that needs to be put out into the world, the voices that people need to hear, so they know, what it looks like to deliver a great product, have quality, and making sure they're the bigger person in terms of how they respond to things. Because it's not necessarily submissive. That's one perspective, but it's also control, because a lot of people are controlled by their emotions. Yeah. And that's a lot of people's kryptonite. Everybody to an extent, but it's do you have conscious awareness to say, if I say something, is it going to affect you? Are you going to hold face, or are you going to be like, Shawn, why'd you say that? Who won in that sense? And that's what it means to be some type of influence, or what it means to be on camera at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It's just accountability, and that's the thing that's what gives people our ability to, that camera's not right, because that's a big portion of my VOP execs for the film side of things. Yeah. I want to sit everybody down, and I want to learn your process, and you're ultimately putting yourself into the vulnerable light, and you're getting an idea on the other side, because while you're busy critiquing, you're not on front of the camera.
Yeah.
Like, and to say that that's wrong, that's necessarily wrong. It's more so a style that you never necessarily,
Right.
especially didn't do. Like, I've been there. I've worked with so many film individuals. Like, they're like, that's not right. Oh, I don't like the way they do that. It's just more so their perception is more so, is that the rule? Especially film is art. And I'm sure you can speak on that. It's an art form, and to say yours is right and someone else is wrong, it's blasphemy. But not to go ahead and go on a rant, but just that, I don't know what you said, but in general, like, holding a greater
unless it's
standard.
like M. Night Shyamalan's Avatar, then that's not art.
What?
Unless if it's like M. Night Shyamalan's Avatar, then no.
It's like low quality.
Sorry.
No, there's some objective things. You're like, yeah.
That's like taking someone's amazing art and then just interpreting it the wrong way. Sorry, M. Night. Anyways, yeah.
What would you say? I wanted to ask you this to begin with. Do you ever go back and watch some of your old creatives? I do my stuff all the time.
Hands down. And
like some of the stuff you did with the
cringe.
Phoenix, you're like, damn, why did
yeah, like some of the stuff that I used to do at the Suns, like it's cringy sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like, dang, somebody paid me to do this.
That's like you just holding yourself to a high standard.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm so high critical towards myself. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm super critical on everything that I do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not like that, how do you expect yourself to grow?
No, 100%. You gotta have that. You gotta have a certain degree of just self accountability. Again, that accountability goes into every aspect. In this case, self accountability to always be moving the needle. Like I gotta have a shirt. Progression is the only obsession. Like that's my saying. I always say that, and that keeps me focused on the next move. Like for me, I see, okay, this will be the third podcast. I just see the momentum because at one point I used to do podcasts for like brands that I would create. Like I think I've showed you a few, but like Miss Manual.
Yep.
I was doing a podcast while I was doing Uber. I was like in the parking lot doing it, waiting for a ride. I would wake up, crazy times out the day to coordinate with somebody that might be in Australia. And the compound of doing that, the progression of doing that, like I got so good at just overall communicating. And so that was my standard, is just to keep doing it, because I knew I would just become a savage, more and more of a savage, as opposed to, glorifying perfection. Because there's nothing wrong with it, but the progression of getting as close as you can to perfection is to continuously do it. And that is why content is something that's why it's an art form that can always be expanded on and trying different styles, because you could always be doing something. Like, especially film, we could probably chop this up into 400 different pieces of content
reels,
15 seconds, 30 seconds, and we'll still be like,
But let me input on that, because I see even some of my current clients, and even though I try to educate them as much as I can, is you just can't be putting out random stuff of content. And I like what Parker Walbeck said, is the content that you put out has to be shareable, relatable. Relatable.
Let's think on it. Give
Hold
it a
on,
second.
no. Hold on. I'm going to cut this out anyways.
Leave the raw, the real.
It's relatable, relevant, shareable. Okay.
Yeah.
It has to be relevant, relatable, and shareable. That's what he said. And hands down, that's so true. Because if you meet all three of those criteria with the content that you're putting out, one, if it's relevant to what's going on in the world or in your industry, people are going to share it. If it's relatable to them, like a personal experience that you went through, you lost so much money during this deal, whatever it may be, people can relate to that and they will share it. You know
Exactly.
what I mean? So my advice to people that are cutting up content, short form content especially, is make sure that the things that you're saying and the content that you're putting out there meet those three criteria.
No.
Relatable, shareable, reliable. Did I say it right?
You said
relative.
Relevant.
It has to be relatable, reliable, and shareable. Yeah.
See, look at that.
Those three.
So I'm saying progression, bro. You said it the third time, you got it. But no, I 100% agree, especially because I'm sure you listen to a lot of people, the clients that you have now, they have the intent, because you can put anything out, but a lot of people that put stuff out, they have an intent on wanting people to engage with it. So those 3 principles, people need to have those in mind if they want to reach an audience. And that's why this is so cool to do, because first of all, for me, I can talk. I can definitely not talk, but I see podcasting, especially when it comes to businesses or people that come in here and they want to create some type of content or help amplify their business. You need to look at your business and your day-to-day or what's going on in your week-to-week as like a Family Guy episode.
Right.
I like to use Family Guy because on Family Guy, what do they always do? Probably cut to it right now, boop, where it's like that one time this happened.
Right.
And you cut straight to it. And that was an element of what made Family Guy, controversial to, most importantly, viral. Every business has that.
Everything in those episodes are relatable, shareable, relevant.
Exactly. And this is what you need to do. And this is why it's so important to be conscious of, like, even just talking about like what you like to do, because that's how you can like tie things in. Like all the stuff we've talked about here, now that I've done this more and more, that's why I'm so pumped to always record. I'm like, I don't have to get, if I could just live in the studio, I'll just live in the studio, because if I could just record, I can make some of the most dynamic content where I'm talking about personal development, Dragon Ball Z, filming. Like I have all this content to use, whether it's on the internet or in my phone, to bring relevant, to make my content that much more unique and relevant and shareable to where people want to engage. Because all social media is nowadays is we can like relate to more people. Like it's just high school on steroids. It's every group, but now it's on the internet now, where you have people that like this type of stuff. You have people that like this. Like I like chess. Like I have so many analogies.
When I heard you talking about chess the other day, I was like, I need to play Shawn, because I play chess too.
Oh, you do? What's your elo?
Yeah.
Oh no,
I haven't been on it in a minute, but like it's probably embarrassing. But the highest I ever gone on chess.com or whatever is probably like 1,100.
It's not embarrassing, bro. I just got to 1,100. I'm like flux.
But now I'm like in the 900s because I haven't played it for so long. But that's why I love chess, because I feel like it helps keep your mind sharp.
Yeah.
And then you also have to be strategic. And I think that's why I get so pissed off when I lose the game, because at the end of the day, you have to be smarter than the other individual. And so when somebody outsmarts you or you make a stupid move in chess, you're like, dang. And that's... I like how you compared it to life, because I feel like chess is very relatable to life.
Yeah, life is a tall positioning, and being able to see certain moves on the board. Like everybody can make the same moves, especially now. Like us living in America, I always look at myself leading up until this point. Like I'm coming from. We all have our backgrounds, and it's like, having all the information I have now, it's like I always say, it's no excuses. I just need to see. I need to see what I can't see right now. Like that's why I was excited us working together and giving businesses direction and overall providing value where people understand why they need to go ahead and get things booked in now before this thing's filled up to the brim between this room in itself and everything below.
Say that again. Say that again.
Everything as far as
get in before it starts booking.
Oh yeah, get in. Yeah. AZ Pod Studio, like get in before it starts getting filled, because like this is literally like your production is like one of the best, if not the best.
Well, I appreciate that.
In the valley.
I still feel like we have to perfect some things, but we strive to be the best.
You have a great foundation to go ahead and make this something that's so dynamic and unique, because like between what you got going on and what I have going on, like this is something that a lot of people like you're on the forefront of what people need, and they don't necessarily know it yet. And our job is to be the educators of letting them know that this is available to get these things done. Because if content's king and they need to be pumping things out, they need to just know where to go. We're the GPS, and that's why it's important for us to keep jumping on camera and our expertise as far as with the studio and marketing and trust and relationship and quality and overall a message. Those things all go together, and your presentation for it and this what you have here is collectively going to help them move the needle on where they want to go. Because the great thing is what you're doing and what we have, what's here is something that's impacting a lot of people. It's not just creating content. Like content evokes emotion. Evoking emotion is moving people, and you're literally by default impacting lives. When that's like a powerful feeling to even like if you break it down, like damn, I've got 72 people great businesses or people that are influencers that come into my studio and, this is what they do. And, I was able to help them go from point A to point B in their life. I was able to help 42 people for that business, see the light of why they needed to work with this person because I gave them, I created the vessel. Like, that's powerful.
Yeah, and that's what I tell the clients that come in is I think our superpower that we offer to our clients is consistency. Mm-hmm. If they stay dedicated and they come into the studio and record, we'll always show up. We'll always deliver what needs to be delivered to them. Mm-hmm. But we almost unintentionally create a mindset within them to be consistent with dropping content. Because when you get to that mindset, you can be unstoppable, honestly. You create consistency. Mm-hmm. If I started consistently going to the gym, I'll probably look like you, like all buff and ripped. But it's the same concept with the content that you drop for yourself and your brand. Is like you just stay consistent with dropping the content, coming in to record. Shoot, sky's the limit.
Content is no longer an accessory; it's a necessity.
Yeah,
it's you control. We now have businesses now have the ability to control the narrative, and people need to start taking it serious. Like, I know we're only 20 years in, but specifically talking to just small business owners or people that have something, like creating content and having a great presentation, and having a story that's relevant, shareable, and what was the third one? You said
reliable,
relatable.
Yep. Shareable.
Reliable, relatable, and shareable. If you can go ahead and build principle on your business, if you can build on those 3 principles for your business or your brand, you can help yourself go from point A to point B. You can make progression the only obsession, because if you do that, then you can have everything you want. Because at the end of the day, whether it be money or overall attention is like the biggest currency nowadays. You can mold your life however you want to see it. You can touch who you want to touch in terms of an impactful standpoint, and overall, like, I don't know. People like to say that we're so different, but we're different in our own unique ways. But it's just crazy how so many people are so similar. Like, I like how that person does. It's like we're all objectively the same. It's just deciding to.
It's just what's different is how much willpower do you have to do what you want to get to.
100%.
So, that's the only difference. A lot of us have something to say, and a lot of us strive for the same goals. But it's the person that actually does something about it, that takes action, is the one that's gonna get fed. So, and that's
exactly why the voices of production are so important, because like everybody talks about a problem, we simply want to encourage solutions through solution-oriented minds, because everybody's got problems. You got problems. I got problems. Who watching this has problems. The difference is, I was just telling Nate, I'm going to try to get him in here as well to sit down. He's like, I don't want to jump on camera. But it's not even about being positive. Like we were talking about that. I was like, get your mind right. Cause I'm always encouraging him to do certain things, but I'm like, hey, I was like, you don't actually have to be woo-woo. It's more so just encouraging more solutions. And that's what, going back to chess, that's why I like to play chess. Because, like, for me, all I know is to play the next move. And I've played so many, like 3 to 5 minute games. So I'm always, like, even if I lose a game, like, it might piss me off, but, like, I'm ready to play the next game. I'm like, oh, I know how to open this now. Okay, this one I'm going to try. I'm gonna do this, because I'm always problem solving on move 1 to move 15 to move 20. And if people can wire their minds like that, as opposed to playing why me, consuming things like this, because everybody's downloading. Like, people are consuming. Consumption is a downloading. You're downloading a certain type of mindset. So if you can download information, who you're listening to, the content you listen to, the music you listen to, the podcast you listen to, who you're around, you can download a solution-oriented mindset to figure out a solution to the problem you might have, as opposed to being like, oh my God, and then the news feeding this narrative as if there's no hope. And that's where it kills me. My grandmother, I'm like, Grandma, turn the TV off, because she watched the news and she's cutting edge. She's on social media, but like her form of media that she's always stick to is the news. It's always on, and it's like, this person was decapitated. And she's like, did you hear about what happened to the person? She always tells me, she's like, did you hear about that restaurant that got sued in Arizona that did this crazy thing? And I'm like, Grandma. Like,
my mom's the same way.
Yeah.
She'd be like, ay, mijo, ten cuidado. Lo que está pasando ahorita con todo. Like, she just like sees one little thing in the news, and then she just starts worrying and panicking. And I'm like, Mom, where did you hear that? It's in the news. I'm like, yeah, there's some truth to it, but at the end of the day, they're just trying to scare you.
That's what I'm saying. So
fear drives the emotion.
Exactly. And that's
again, video emotion, yeah.
So going back to the news, so hear me out. Like, if you guys are watching this and you own a business and you're watching the news, like, if you got to look at the news as a prime example. The news has some type of agenda. Wherever we're not trying to solidify of what political party or what you believe, but objectively speaking, if you can consume and say the news is created by somebody that has a certain mindset and an agenda, and let's just say whoever that might be wants you to be fearful when they listen to it, because if that's what most people feel, or hopeful or non-hopeful, like there's now you can turn that off and turn this on. Like, but you have to have the willpower, because it's hard nowadays. It's super hard. I forgot, Denzel Washington said something. I forgot exactly what he said, but he was talking about free will. Like, we've got so much free will where people don't necessarily have the ability to control it, but it's like it's a fight, because there's so much stuff that people can consume, and these apps are set up to be addictive, and the algorithm is going to show you things that you're just going to always want to like zone in, like Wally, like when they're sitting in the chair and, you know, they're looking laid back on the ship in 2020, you know, 2022 or 2242, because the planet was, you know, destroyed and everything is at their convenience and they're out of shape. Like these are the things that you got to like fight, because otherwise you're going to be not in control. You're going to be Ready Player One to a degree. Like that's like, you can use it, but like you got to fight it. Like that's what I always think about, because it's like, I love technology. I love helping business, but you got to use it to your advantage is what I'm saying.
Yeah, use it to your advantage. And I think this is a whole new other topic, but especially with us being in that industry of video, you know, striving for emotion and all that, it's how are we using our skills and abilities to be good for the world instead of just distracting. And that's been a big mindset for me since I started my own business. It's like, do I want to be like one of those other companies or networks that just wants to drive fear, or do I actually want to use my business to drive change? Right. So again, it goes back to what we were talking about, video being important and being a powerful tool and element, not just for your business, but to shape how things see the perception on how the world sees things as well. So, yeah.
No, you have it with what you got going right now, and that's the beautiful thing as far as with episodes like this. Like, you know, this thing just flowed, but having control and us having dialogue like this and people coming in, this is where we can have some type of say. Like we're not sidelining anymore. Like at some point it was people had no say. And even now, it's crazy, you know, what the world is with all the censorship and everything. Regardless of what you believe in objectively, there's people that say something. Is it necessarily, you know, the best thing to hear, or depending on who you are? No, but, you know, like the saying, I was listening to a podcast this morning. It was Andy Frisella's podcast, and he said, like, what happened to the saying, sticks and stones may break your bones? But now we're in such a sensitive world where that was America's saying. Like all I heard was that saying when I was in high school. Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words can't. But now that seems like it's like being thrown out the window or non-existent, because, you know, people can't necessarily handle what's being said or don't have control over emotion, because they have all this free will, and they took the blue pill or whatever, you know, in terms of like the whole Matrix scenario. So it's like, wow, like now we can combat those things coming from newspaper. I love the Joker movie, because it really brings you back to the reality. Exactly. Just the sign, and then, you know, just the payphone. Like they do a really good job of representing that movie. Like I really like the production of that movie. Shout out to who directed that?
I think it was James Gunn.
Shout out to him. Like,
James Gunn is a beast.
That's like one of my pinnacle. I want to do that at least a couple times. I don't know necessarily be a career, but like direct a documentary or have some say in a documentary or a movie of some sort to really convey emotion at that level. Like the things that you get, it's like pretty dope to get so many people in a room that are like, in like movie theaters across the country or the world to laugh, cry, or be angry. It's like insanity. What time is it? Oh. See, this isn't bad, bro. See, we're very destroying.
I was just trying to make sure that it was. Nope.
What?
So I was wrong on the director because I just looked it up.
Oh, you
So
wanted to see it?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure because I'm like, wait, I don't think it's James Gunn. So
Oh,
Todd Phillips. Before people start, dropping hate comments, it was
That's
Todd.
not who it was.
It wasn't that. It was Todd Phillips. My bad. So, but James Gunn is coming back. Is coming to DC, and I think he's gonna kill it. And basically, like me, I'm more of a Marvel over DC just because of the way Marvel has approached things. I know we're getting sidetracked, so I apologize. That's what happens when you put geeks and film enthusiasts in one room.
It's fine. Like I said, this is where the beauty of things come in terms of taking this long form or clipping it up. We can clip it up, and then it'll attract us geeks into the productions of things to go ahead and propel a better narrative as the like I was watching the Hulk. Like I know that's like a whole controversial thing. Like the whole dying down of Hulk. I was watching Hulk 2001. I think that's when that came out. I forgot who plays it, but Hulk that came out early 2000s compared to the Hulk now. And I'm always reading comments, and I'm like, damn. I'm like, okay. It's like I see what people are saying, like because like the Hulk early 2002, I think it was.
2003.
2003, that's Hulk was like. I missed that Hulk. Like I want to see that Hulk go against Thanos. like that would have been that right there is like.
Well, we did, and Thanos, basically was like bam. But you mean like a full on like one-on-one fight type of thing or what?
It'd be a full one-on-one, but like a lot of people like in terms of just like Thanos beating up. The Hulk. Not to say he wouldn't. It's just highly like made like watered down his character. Like him being so like he was just more violent. And then they made the Hulk recent more so like I don't know.
You're saying the 2003 film Hulk versus Thanos now.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
That's what you're saying?
Yes.
So like his violent Hulk versus Thanos now.
Yes.
You think he wouldn't have taken a beating from Thanos?
It would have been way more interesting because
I feel like that's what made it more interesting because the Hulk is a beast, but then I think that was needed to see how bad Thanos was. Like when I say bad, as in like a boss.
No, Thanos. I love Thanos. It's funny. I've got video. I have it on my Instagram bio of Wealthy Thinking 101 programming. But I listen to Thanos quotes like while I work out. It's like destiny arrives all the same. Like I love it, but just from a combative standpoint of like because after he got beat up, he's like, I learned how to control it. Like I don't know. It was just the violence of that character. It literally like if you had to like put it on like a video game, his powers seemed they got decreased after that. Because obviously he was controlled, but like there's nothing wrong with little rage every now and again.
Every now and then.
That's what I'm saying. Like I'm all about control, but also like sometimes you gotta release the demon out of you, So that was like a representation of that. Hence, I'm coming here from deadlifting. I gotta deadlift people so people aren't dead. keep the control in. You know what I mean? Because everyone's got that rage. As a guy's one way or another. But in general, like I don't know. I see that argument. Even another thing that was interesting. I guess we can. I don't know. We can keep going or let me know. We go from like 5.
Well, I feel like we've gotten such a sidetrack that
it's fine. But that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Like I'll wrap up with this. Like people were talking about Last of Us.
Okay.
So I watched this video. It's a good point.
I still have not seen it. I played the video games.
Okay. Oh, you have
video games are amazing.
Okay.
But I have not seen the show. But yeah, I'm like.
I'll save it.
No, you could say it because I don't know if I'll watch it because the video games are so good. And I know that the show itself is really good from what I heard. And they've been doing that comparison analysis between the game and
Yeah. I'm sure you see clips and everything.
I've seen the clips, I've seen the imagery. They stuck to it.
They got the clickers.
That's the only reason. Oh, they got them right.
They look. It makes me itch.
Okay.
Seeing the clickers in the bloaters and stuff. It's
okay. And that's what you want is like if the content is out there, honor it. Honor the game. Because they're the ones that started it. So
they had the one video they were talking about. There was like low key propaganda in it in terms of like making things. I didn't really care about like they were making things right. Like in terms of they like put it in there intentionally between like propaganda on like current woke things and then also the thing that I guess that lacked was it wasn't like you play the game and you know your expectation if you've played both The Last of Us 1 and 2 is to have a lot of discourse amongst infected. So they didn't have nearly as much that a lot of people felt in the film or in the series. And there was a lot of there was like a lack of character development. They did the way they did it. It was definitely done great. And then not to mention like Drucker helped. He wanted to work side by side with the director that was producing it to have it match to an extent, and it definitely did. They took words like verbatim, word for word.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of substance that you not necessarily see in the game, or people being hypercritical of that really were like about the game. That like even they said Joel wasn't as intense as he was in the game.
In the game.
Like they tried to write him off again, a watered down version, like Hulk, a watered down version of what it was in the game as compared to where he was in the show as far as like what he was. And they did a good job. It was just, again, it was more so the demeanor of it. Like, I don't know, Joel had like, he was having like panic attacks.
In the show?
Yeah, that was like one scenario. He had like panic attacks like after he meets his brother and he meets the brother and then.
Interesting.
And he tells him, I don't know, he had anxiety because he had anxiety. They painted the frame of like Joel had anxiety that he couldn't deliver Ellie. When the pass off happened, I don't know if you remember that in the game where he was like, "You're gonna go with my brother."
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
he was having anxiety because I just keep messing up. But a lot of people didn't like that aspect because he was basically doubting himself. And if you play the game, Joel is just violent man in terms of like getting it done where it just didn't match.
Yeah.
It was more so it was PG.
He's pretty low key brutal in the games.
That's what I'm saying. So
like he's got like anything that harms the people I love. Mm-hmm. Almost like Rick Grimes in The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Anybody that messes with my family or messes with the things that I love.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
No remorse.
Kind of the point I'll end with this, but kind of the point of I forgot what I was talking. I was talking to my buddy Carson. Maybe I'll get him on one of the production cast, the VOP film side of things. But he was just talking about Marvel movies of like you're saying, like the direction. You guys might be hitting on the same note, but how they either have removed certain versions of like. I say certain narratives of certain movies to give it a happy ending, quote unquote, to remove the negativity or the grit that comes with it. They want to create a certain narrative or an outcome and not necessarily portray that in terms of like how the movie is viewed. Like I forgot exactly what it is. Of course he says it better, but overall, like they just wanted to remove like any aggression or negativity or certain narratives in certain Marvel films or where they just wanted to keep everything in a very
safe
scenario, and that turned him off to just certain things in terms of like the movies of it, where they were like making things safe and they were upright just removing certain movies. I forgot exactly. It was just a very memorable moment because I'm learning from him. He just graduated ASU, so I was like interesting because I didn't necessarily know. Like obviously, you don't know if you don't necessarily talk about it. You're just consuming,
Right.
So
right.
He gave me that perspective, and so for me, I'm all about hearing. That's the beautiful thing about the media or social media or the internet is you can digest other narratives. Like I liked both Hawks, like it was cool, but the argument I'm down to have a conversation about where I'm like I could see that. Like I'm not like like, yeah, Hulk, this one was cool, but like I just got an update on the Hulk I just watched last night, and I was just like, I haven't seen this in years. I'm like, this is I was like, well, I forgot how badass this Hulk was, and so all you do is compare.
So when he's fighting those dogs, that's brutal as heck.
It's very brutal. That's the thing. How you like? Oh my God! Like that's part of.
You can't show that now. PETA will jump in and be like, you can't be killing CG dogs.
See what I'm saying? And that is the voice of production that people are, that there's a opposite side that people want to take away, when in reality,
Yeah.
that's part of life in general. Going back to the whole premise of just the voices of production, to bring it full circle, is it's nothing wrong. Going back to what we first talked about, there's nothing wrong that you had your back against the wall. There's nothing wrong to share our trials and tribulations. There's nothing wrong with showing a process of your business, because people want to hear that. Because if you don't, people are thinking us in front of the camera that we're perfect and we have perfections, and there's never going to be anything.
Definitely show the imperfections. People want to see, I think more and more people want to see the process.
See?
They want to see the process, not just the beginning when you're starting and then when you make it. The process is so important. So I'm glad that you're documenting, because eventually somebody's going to be like, yo, how did Shawn get there? And you'd be like,
I hit up Martin.
It's right there. It's right there. I've documented the entire thing for you. You just got to go back and watch it.
And it's going to encourage people to go on, because think about it like this. Like, there's so many Disney is great, but not every movie is a Disney movie. Mm-hmm. You're living heavily ever after. And there's so many people that think that's the mentality of how things go, because once things don't sustain as a Disney movie, they want to stop things. And in reality, when things hit the fan, we know that we got to go ahead and push through, and we got to figure it out. And if you stick with it, you go through it, and you trust the process, you can find yourself on the other end, especially if you keep going. And you can do things and create things like you're doing, or us helping with the impacting of it. And that's why that gore is, I see things like that in the grand scheme is important, because that's behind the scenes. That's the process. That's part of the process. To take that out of the process, that's deceitful. That's hindering, because I gotta have this camera set up immediately. No, turn your camera on a few times.
No, just turn it on.
Turn it on.
Start somewhere.
Record it.
Yep.
Do 10 times. Okay. Look at the website.
Yep.
Go to AZ Pod Studios. Hit up Shawn if you want to go ahead and get consulted. And as far as what you should say on camera, and then book your first session, get things edited.
Yeah.
Work with us, look at it, and then we'll post one. And then next week we'll do two. And then we may run ads on that one. And then we'll, compound.
That's what I tell people is like, all this is awesome and amazing to have, but like you just said, you don't need it. Just pick up your phone, start shooting content, put your message out there, see what's relatable, reliable, and shareable.
See?
When you're dropping it.
Took you 20 times.
It took me 20 times, but I got it now.
See?
Part of the process.
Progression is only
efficient. But if people are responding to your lower content, as far as quality, right? Mm-hmm. If they're responding to it and interacting, and you're creating engagement with the stuff that you're putting out now, imagine when you start throwing the quality on top of it.
Exactly.
So the biggest thing I would say to people is that just start. 100%. And even for myself, I'm putting myself accountable after this, since you put me in front of the camera, which I give you mad respects for just even inviting me, and feel honored to be invited on, since this is the first podcast I've ever been on.
I'm honored for that one.
So this is the first time that I'm actually in front of the camera and pushing myself to be in front of the camera. So I could have said no and be like, let me wait till you hit like 20 episodes. But I'm like, you know what? Let me just do it now. But so I'm holding myself accountable moving forward, that I'm going to put myself more in front of the camera, whether that's with my phone or camera. But since I have the studio, I'm going to take full advantage of it. Just put more content out there. So
I'm honored to go ahead and be able to be helping you and be one of the catalysts to go ahead and do it. Because again, this is everything you see here, you walk into here, this all condenses down to one word. There's a reason that all exists. Everything here is a collective. It's it's a reputation of a collective decisions made. So that's, and for me, I'm a curious George. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
I say, I don't know, I posted something the other day, but ants, I'm the curious ant. So, but this has been great. So like I said, if you guys are consuming this, your feedback is my oxygen. You got Martin's oxygen. If you're in the valley of Arizona, you need to jump here at AZ Pod Studios, because this is the hub for being able to tell your story at any level or any degree, whether you have a brand, if you don't have a brand, if you have a small business. Pretty soon we're going to be having the studio booked up where you're going to be able to come down and sit down and really share your story, and most importantly, evoke emotion to help move the needle where you want to go. If you have social media as part of your life, you have it a part of what you're doing, this is the place you need to come. This is the place you need to go ahead and help gain the trust and better present your business, so people can willingly give your business where you're seen as the obvious choice. You're seen as an authority when people think of your industry. So make sure you go ahead and give AZ Pod Studios a follow. And thanks for tuning in. And stay tuned for next time for the next Voice of Production.